Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. I do hope you're doing really well. I'm doing fabulous, thank you very much, and I'm really going to enjoy spending some quality time with you, listening to a fabulous story. But before we get started, don't forget to get that quintessential drink, whatever it is that's going to refresh you on a hot day or cool you down, or warm you up on a cold day, depending on where you are in the globe. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and the thumbs up, and let's get started with tonight's story. Dear Sarah and all your lovely listeners, a young girl of about 13 years old was staring at the little china figurines in the department store, her little sister beside her, whispering, "Go on, you can do it." The girl tossed her silky mane of blonde hair to one side. Her blue eyes registered apprehension. She looked furtively around her to see where the security guard was, catching a brief sighting of his dark shadow walking down a distant aisle. He was not paying any attention to the two young girls. She wanted to do it. She really did. But the level of hesitant irresolution in her was strong, as if a higher, wiser voice within her was pulling her away. "Don't do it," warned the voice. "Don't do it." She wasn't even remotely interested in the china figurine. It was tacky, cheap, really rather nasty. But taking it would be a triumph, a success, a victory. "Go on," whispered her little sister. "Do it. Just do it." She could feel her sister nudging her in the shins. She knew that they mustn't look suspicious under any circumstances. The store detectives would be able to discern any dubious, illusory body language. It wouldn't surprise her at all if they were watching her from their hidden surveillance system in the back room somewhere. Those people were trained to study unscrupulous body language. "We mustn't look guilty, nor crooked," she whispered to her little sister. "We must act like we're shopping, like everybody else in the store, with an air of indifference, a casual curiosity." She walked up and down the aisles, fingering all the different objects, glancing at their prices, replacing them back on their shelves. She didn't like any of them at all. In her opinion, they were seriously crude and tasteless, nothing she would willingly choose to personally buy. Her mother had always described such items as bric-a-brac, dust collectors, items of very little value. She tended to agree. It was not often that she would see eye to eye with her mother, but on this occasion she certainly did. "I don't believe you can do it," her sister whispered. "I knew you would chicken out. You're such a flake." "I have to do it," she told herself. "My sister's absolutely right. I haven't got any bottle whatsoever. But what if I get caught?" She pushed away those negative thoughts because they were robbing her confidence, filling her with doubt. "Go on, do it," she told herself. "You know you can." In a moment of brazen courage, she grabbed the tawdry, grotesque figurine, stuffing it up her sweatshirt as fast as she possibly could, hoping that her quick, sudden movements had been undetected by security. She straightened down the loose-fitting sweatshirt to erase any suspicious-looking lumps and bumps, proceeding to walk away in a nonchalant way, increasing her pace to a hurried stride, towards the swinging exit doors that were about 100 feet away. They couldn't leave the store fast enough, but running too fast might draw attention to them that they would sooner rather avoid. Then there were shouts as a security officer ran after her. "Stop! Stop there! Stop!" She found herself running as hard as she could. Her breathing intensified, becoming rapidly fast, her heart pounding like a bass drum. "Run! Run!" her inner voice screamed. She lost her sense of direction because she became disorientated, like a boat adrift at sea. She ran straight ahead of her, but alas, there were no exit doors on this side of the shop. She found herself cornered in the stockroom, in the clothing department of all things. There was no way out. She was trapped, like a caged animal, at the mercy of these security officers. The security guard thrust her forward, hoisting her up by the arm, guiding her out of the storeroom, where several customers were watching what was going on, with whispers and finger-pointing. The humiliation was intense. How she longed for the ground to swallow her whole. She was led towards a red staircase, which they climbed together, until they finally reached the 3rd floor. She was led into a small room, where the security guard told her, "Wait there." The boss is on his way. Take a seat." She reached out for a chair, pulling it backwards, seating herself awkwardly on its edge, her legs now trembling with anxiety, her feet pounding the floor in nervous twitches. Before long, a portly man entered the room, his well-upholstered body softly cushioned like a lounge chair, with a head absent of hair except for a narrow fringe that framed the outer edges of his scalp with a scant scattering of grey. He sat down on the chair. It groaned as his derriere hit the seat, as if the chair itself was pained by the weight it had to support. "So, who have we got here?" he asked, peering at me through his rounded glasses that framed his hazel-brown eyes. "I understand from my security officer that you were caught stealing a figurine. Now, what do you have to say for yourself, young lady?" "I'm sorry, sir," the girl stammered, tears pouring down her cheeks. She felt so ashamed, so embarrassed, so degraded. There were no words. I didn't mean it, really. It was only a bit of fun. I don't even like the figurine. It's hideously ugly, sir." The man raised a quizzical brow. "You'll be surprised how many times I've heard people express the very same excuse." "I'm not making excuses, sir. I really didn't mean it. It was only a bit of a game. I'm not a thief. I've never ever stolen anything before. Never. Not once. I promise you." "Well, that is very good to hear," said the man, looking grave. "The problem is, this game of yours costs our store hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. It's the consumer who then ends up footing the bill. The store has to charge the customer more as a result to cover that shortfall. Do you see what I'm saying, young lady?" She nodded. "I'm really sorry, sir. I promise you, it will never, ever happen again." He looked at the girl sceptically, his lips turned downwards into a scowl, whilst he reached for his telephone. "What is your home number? I think I should speak to your mother on your account. She needs to be informed about what you have done." The girl's heart sank like a heavy stone, plummeting to the bottom of a large lake. "No, no!" the words screamed inside her. "Please, God, don't call my mother. Don't call her, please." She knew she'd get into trouble. Big, big trouble. She thought quickly. A plan manifested itself in her mind. "My parents are at work, sir. I don't know the number," she lied. The man replaced the handset back on the receiver, looking directly at the young girl. "Well, I'll let you off just this once. But, young lady, next time if this should happen, not only will I be calling your parents to inform them about what you have done, but I will be calling the police to have you arrested. Do you understand? Consider yourself warned." The girl flushed with relief. It washed over her like the warmth of a refreshing shower. "Thank you, sir," she said. "It won't ever happen again, I promise." She meant every word of it. Never in her entire life had she felt so humiliated, so belittled, so ridiculously small. She dreaded to imagine how her stay-at-home mother would have reacted if she had known what she'd done today. Thank God she didn't. Then there was her father, who would have been grievously disappointed in her. She could already visualize the shame on his face. She would hear his disappointed words. "Verity, I'm incredibly disappointed in you. I did not raise you to become a thief." Then there was that dreadful haunting episode of being cornered in that stockroom that kept replaying in her head over and over again, like a relentless video on rewind, rekindling those ghastly feelings of self-reproach, contriteness and penance. Oh my goodness! Today had been the most ignominious, demeaning and mortifying day of her entire life. As she left the store, everything was blurred. Her mind a fuzz, a whirly mist, a smoky vapour. But despite her disorientation, she would know her way home, even with a blindfold over her eyes. In those days, the shops on Forest Road, as the name suggests, were bordered by a sizable forest with about 3 distinctive hiking trails. Luckily, she knew a short way home through the woods using the Penwick hiking trail that no longer exists today. The forest was bulldozed in 1994 to make way for more shops, department stores, boutiques, eateries and cafes. The Penwick Trail went through a vertical stretch of woods to a dirt road. It was on this dirt road that a scattering of houses could be found, of which her family home was one of many. The Webster family home was a simple symmetrical bungalow. It was pretty in a way, not spectacular, just average, but it was a quality home nevertheless. Even 3 years later, she fails to remember that walk of shame after she'd been apprehended for shoplifting. It had been eroded from her memory, like a waterfall thundering from the rocks, smoothing away the rough edges. There are some things one doesn't want to ever remember. All she did recall was that at some point along that journey, her sister had pounced at her from the underbrush as she lay in wait for her to return from the store, eager to learn what had happened to her after she'd been taken away by the security officer. "Did you get into trouble?" she asked her sister. The girl nodded. "As long as I live," she told her, "I'll never steal again." That young girl was me at 13 years old. Now I was 17. I had been invited to a very significant birthday celebration. I wanted to look amazing, stunning, beautiful. All my friends had been discussing the dresses that their parents were buying for them. I was discussing nothing. I wasn't even certain my mother would buy me a dress at all. That horrifying realization whirled around in my head like the washing in the drum of a washing machine on full cycle, going around and around on itself. I had fallen in love with a stunningly beautiful dress, a red dress in a boutique that I'd seen on Forest Road. It was absolutely magnificent, long, elegant, stylish, everything a young girl could ever dream of. The question was, would my mother agree to buy it for me? I had a sneaking suspicion I already knew the answer to that question. It would be a decisive no. My mother could be cruel. It's hard to describe my parents to you. They were nice enough, I suppose, but not without their own issues. I remember when I was very little, I always believed my parents were perfect, but that changed when the cracks began to show. The perfection slipped away, like makeup sliding and melting off the face on a sweltering hot day. I realized then they were just only human, very much like the next person. I grew up in a middle-class family, the oldest of 2 sisters in an idyllic neighbourhood, surrounded by dirt roads not yet tarmacked in those days, along with ubiquitous areas of natural wood green. Fortunately for us in our neck of the woods, most of the neighbours were on friendly terms with each other, so it was a congenial, welcoming place to live, where we interacted and played with the local kids. My father had a good job in Portland, but generous were words that did not describe my parents, who were not inclined to spoil us at all, most especially my mother, who believed we were spoilt already. Yet we never chose to be born. We never chose to go to private schools, nor did we choose to get engaged in all those extracurricular activities our parents arranged for us after school. Somehow my mother blamed us for the expenses that piled up daily on our accounts. Yet she wasn't adverse to treating herself rather regularly with extravagant designer handbags, fashionable shoes, voguish outfits and expensive contemporary pieces of jewellery that she regularly announced were well-deserved, as being a mother was a full-time job, we were told. On one occasion she even let slip that she really wished she never had kids, as they were so damned expensive. I once heard her tell her best friend over coffee that she'd be loaded if it weren't for us kids. I could hear the disgruntled, peeved tone in her voice. I got the distinct impression she resented all the money my father was lashing out for private school education, along with our extracurricular activities, so she was determined to draw the line in the sand somewhere. "Why do we have to send our kids to private schools?" she would grumble to our father tirelessly. "A state school would do just as well for them. The money we're splashing out on them is insane. It's nonsensical. It's completely crazy." "I want the kids to have a great education," said my father. "If it costs us a lot, then it costs us a lot. We need to make the sacrifices. Nothing worth doing ever came without a cost." My embittered mother would look at him like a petulant schoolgirl with her tail between her legs, wearing an infuriated expression on her face of a woman who had been fleeced, short-changed and bamboozled. I knew splashing out on frivolous niceties for us was not on her agenda, but I was still going to try my best to get her to buy me that dress. But she was having none of it, as I had suspected. Verity, I'm not going to throw good money down the drain by buying you a brand new expensive dress when you have a perfectly pretty blue dress in your wardrobe you can wear. It's a complete waste of money. The answer is no. But, Mum, I've worn it to every single party. Please, everybody else is getting a new dress. I don't care what everybody else is doing, Verity. Do I look like I give a toss? No, I don't. If other mothers want to throw away good money on their kids, let them. It won't happen in this household. You'll go to that party in your blue dress. My decision is final. My heart sank. It felt heavy and laden, like a sun that had set with the weight of the world on its shoulders, not feeling confident that it would rise to shine another day. My world closed in on me as a dark curtain of despair engulfed me like the thick grey clouds that gather together on the edge of the horizon to form an overcast day. I know it was silly to be dead set on that red dress that I'd seen in the boutique, but I wanted it so badly. I knew there was only one way I could get it, and that was to steal it. I could feel my chest tightening as I squeezed my eyes tightly, trying to forget that experience in the department store when I was 13 years old. The thought of stealing again left my pulse racing, brought on feelings of nausea that made me feel sick to my stomach, quite queasy really, while the skin on my face broke out in hives as I relived the painful memories of being caught stealing that figurine at the department store. What was worse, I wondered, turning up to a birthday party for the 10th time in a row, wearing exactly the same blue dress, feeling humiliated, self-conscious, embarrassed, or stealing a dress at the boutique, turning up at the party looking like a goddess in red, the belle of the ball, with everybody raving about my outfit. It would make me fit in with the crowd, not feel so out of place. But what if I got caught? My chest tightened even more, my breathing quickened as it constricted, but my decision was final. I would do it. I would steal that dress. Unlike the grotesque figurine at the department store, this dress was something I really did want. And so it was with great trepidation, consternation and foreboding, crippled by the weighted fear of being caught, I made my way to the pretty boutique in Forest Road, not far from the department store. The boutique was unique, its clothes eclectic, superbly designed, but much more elegant than mainstream fashion. I stared at the mannequin in the display window, modelling the dress, marvelling at how this plastic doll could make it look so spectacularly good. I stared at the dress for a long while, knowing that I just had to have it. One day when I earned enough money, I would post the money back to the shop anonymously, I reasoned with myself. I took in a deep, courageous breath, opening the door. The bell tinkled behind me as I entered. "Can I help you?" said a young, fashionable woman, looking at me sifting through the different dresses on the rack. I hoped this time I would not give my dishonourable intentions away. "Are you looking for something particular in mind?" "No, just looking," I lied. I could feel my heart pounding as I selected 3 dresses all in red, along with the one I wanted, which I surreptitiously stuffed inside exactly the same red dress when the shop assistant was talking to other customers. I was hoping with all my heart that the shop assistant would not see that the red dress was doubled in on itself, and that the one dress I presented her at the cubicle was in fact 2. She handed me a token for 3 articles, when in fact I had 4. She hadn't noticed, I thought. All my Christmases had come at once. I had hit pay dirt. I immediately stuffed the red dress into my purse, inside the cubicle, and quickly returned the 3 dresses back to the assistant. No one had suspected a thing. "How are they?" asked the shop assistant, looking at the dresses I handed back to her. "Not quite what I was looking for," I said. "Maybe next time." The shop assistant looked disappointed. "Oh, that's a pity. I really thought this red one would look amazing on you," she said, pointing to the double of the dress now safely tucked in my purse. "I thought so too," I said, "but when I put it on, it lacked the finesse." "I know what you mean," she nodded. "Sometimes on the hanger you think it's going to be a showstopper, and then it just isn't when you put it on." I nodded. "Exactly," I said. I exited the shop. I had done it. I could hardly believe it. I had stolen the dress I was longing to wear. I was ecstatic, happy, thrilled. As I ventured into the woods to take my shortcut home, I was skipping. That's how happy I was. But it wasn't long before I heard two male voices talking to each other as they walked down the Penwick hiking trail. I felt nervous. Had someone seen me stealing the red dress at the boutique? Of course I knew it was an irrational fear, but memories of being cornered in that stockroom at 13 years old came hurling back to me like a gust of wind that pressed down on me so hard that the guilt-ridden feeling became almost oppressive. I realised that I'd missed the excitement of getting away with stealing this dress. I was racked with remorse, penance, and self-disgust. It was a feeling that reminded me of a nagging mother, not different to my own, that kept repeating over and over in my mind, "You shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have done it." I decided to hide from the approaching voices because the heaviness of my guilt was so pronounced that I felt as if everyone in the entire world could see the gravity of my sin, almost as if I had become so transparent that everyone would know what I'd done. Instinctively I ran to take cover behind a large Douglas fir tree, as I didn't want to be spotted by these young men gaining ground on me. I could hear the two men talk as they walked past me with small shopping bags in their hands. "I hope Mum likes her present," said one of the men. "I know women can be very particular about perfume, but she has been wearing the same fragrance for years. I wanted to get her something really different this time. I think she'll like it, bro. The perfume you've got has a similar bouquet, so I'm sure she'll appreciate it. Besides, it's good to get her something different. It never hurts to have a change." The voices trailed away into the distance. It was in that moment that I noticed the forest felt different, unusually different. I had walked in its depths for many years, taking the quintessential shortcuts to town. I'd never felt it like this before. It was disturbing. It was then that I realised that all the birdsong had vanished. It had dematerialised, gone away, almost as if someone had turned the sound off from a radio. It had grown quiet, airily quiet, uncomfortably still. Everything else remained unchanged. The tall ponderosa pines, hemlocks, Douglas firs and spruce trees looked no different. They towered to the heavens in a regal repose, like wizened old men of valour, gallantry and honour. Yet I could sense a very oppressive energy that enveloped the forest like the willowing sharp fumes of a forest fire, a cloying claustrophobic energy that wound around you like a coiling boa constrictor, sucking and squeezing the life out of you. It was like everything in me was sensing that something wasn't quite right. That was when I heard this thundering sound like boom, 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 as if something or someone with a very heavy tread was dropping their feet on the ground every few seconds, one moment at a time, with a mighty vibration, causing the entire forest to jiggle and shake under its substantial weight. It sounded like a rhino or an elephant in the thicket, but here in North America, we don't have a creature that could shake the ground like this. Not even a grizzly bear could do it. It was most unsettling. What the heck is that? I thought to myself. Then I heard the loud, frantic screams of two men calling out for help. "Help! Help! No! No!" My heart thundered in my ears so loudly. My legs picked up speed. I bolted down the trail towards the sounds of the traumatized voices, overwhelmed with feelings of great dread. I could see the figures of the two young men, their backs turned away from me, staring at something. But what? They had stopped screaming. They stood so still, like waxwork statues. I knew they were frozen by fear. I crept cautiously ever forwards, and that was when I saw it. I stopped dead in my tracks, hardly daring to believe what I was seeing. Were my eyes deceiving me? Surely they were. This thing, it couldn't be real, could it? It towered at about 9 foot tall. It was wide, burly, solid, both in width and weight. It was dense with muscle, sinew and brawn, possibly human but not quite. There were ape-like aspects to the creature's anatomy, most especially discerned in the pyramid shape of the head, along with the overlong arms. It was covered in long, flowing, silky dark hair. This hair was absent on the facial area and the undersides of the hands and feet, and also on the knees. I perceived that all the exposed skin was like the texture and sheen of leather, a dark grey colour. The creature stood there eyeing the men with a disgruntled, belligerent look on his face. The two men were shivering and shaking in terror, while the menacing energy this creature exuded was like that of an apex predator that is on the hunt for something delicious to tear apart limb from limb. I felt sure that neither of these two men would live to fight another day. In this rough assessment or overview of mine, I forgot about myself, as it felt as if I was suspended outside my body, watching the scene unfold before my very eyes, almost as if I was a spectator. It was then that it dawned upon me that I was just as much in peril as these two young men were. But if I managed to remain inconspicuous, hopefully it would not see me. I could make an escape, I thought. I considered backtracking from whence I'd come, returning to Forest Road. The creature was eyeballing the two men with savage-looking, deep-set, dark eyes that burnt like bright embers of yellow fire. It then pulled back its long, slender lips to reveal its glistening white, very oversized human-like teeth. It began to growl, a deep throat guttural sound that emanated from the very back of his throat. It was a rumbling sound that was so unnerving it sent chills down my spine, causing my entire body to quiver like a quaking aspen tree. I had considered backtracking from whence I came, but I couldn't even move. It wasn't like I was frozen, for that was indeed not the case. I just felt completely drained of all my energy reserves, as if I was overcome with an incredible weakness that I've never experienced before or since. I held on to the tree for support, for I knew I could pass out or lose consciousness in any given moment, while a hot sweat trickled down my face as if I was in a sauna. Even my clothes became drenched, and I'm not a person inclined to sweat at all. Even looking back at how I reacted that day astounds me, but I realise that this was my fear response. Before that, I'd never felt a level of angst that was equal to this before. Not a chance. All of a sudden, another thumping sound could be heard, jolting through the woods, with powerful thuds that caused the ground to wobble and heave and shake. Oh my God, I thought, another one of these gargantuan creatures. I didn't think I had the stomach to face such adversity. One was enough, but two, the thought was unbearable. Truly, I thought I was going to have a heart attack, for my heart was pounding so fast I thought it would come charging out of my chest, along with the rest of my insides, like a herd of trumpeting bison. Then I saw it. It was another one of these things, but significantly smaller, I'm glad to say. The creature was very evidently female, for she had a large, pillowy pair of breasts that were low slung on her chest. For a second she stood there, chattering away to the male creature, her tone high-pitched, like that of an angry mother. She clearly spoke to him in a language that was reprimanding him. I could tell she wore the pants in her family, for the large creature looked like a naughty schoolboy who had been seriously chastised. He hung his head in shame, while the female slapped him on the back of his head, pushed him forwards through the brush with one huge thrust, leading him into the depths of the forest. Finally, I could hear them thundering away. Then all of a sudden the bird-song returned. The forest came alive again. I noticed the two frozen men seemed to break out of their frozen stupor. "What the hell? What was that thing? What was that awful thing? I thought it would kill us," said the one man. "I don't know," came the other voice. "But whatever it was, it was awful. It was huge. It was terrifying. Let's get the hell out of here." "Wait, I cried, running up to the two men. Please don't leave me on my own in here." The men looked up at me in surprise. "Did you see that thing too?" they asked me. I nodded. I thought it was going to kill you. I thought it was going to kill the both of you, I said. He seemed so angry, so hostile. But I think his mother wanted him to leave you alone. She seemed cross with him for scaring you." "By golly, I think you just might be right," said the man.
I don't think any of us should mention what we've seen this afternoon. People might think we're off our heads." I knew he was right. I certainly had no intention of telling anyone what we'd seen. As for hiking in the forest again, that could only ever happen when the birds were singing. But if it became unduly quiet, I wouldn't enter it at all, and that was certain. To cut a long story short, I was able to wear that beautiful red dress to the party. The compliments flowed all evening, as did the non-alcoholic champagne we drank. I looked drop-dead gorgeous, even if I say so myself. But when my mother found out I'd stolen that dress from the boutique, she took me back to the boutique to apologise, as finally, after seeing the dress in my wardrobe, I confessed that I'd stolen it, which went down with her like a lead balloon. "I'm appalled," she screamed. "I didn't bring you up to be a thief." My mother doesn't pack any punches. She was absolutely furious with me. Her anger was through the roof. She even told the boutique owner that if she wanted to call the police on my behalf, she would quite understand her need to do so. I could see by the glint in my mother's eye. She really hoped the owner would. But she didn't call the police. Instead, she looked quite sympathetic towards me, as if she empathised with me for having such a difficult mother. I told her exactly why I stole the dress. I remember she said to me, "When I was your age, I would have been absolutely mortified if I'd been told to wear the same dress to 10 parties. She told me that in repayment for stealing the dress, I was to work a shift or two for her at the boutique. It was the strangest thing, because I was a natural salesgirl, so she gave me a job full-time at her boutique, and we became the very best of friends. All these years later, I manage my own boutique, but I have a sign in the window that reads, "Young, poor, no money, need a dress for a special occasion. Speak to the owner inside." Over the years, I've helped many youngsters wear something halfway decent to a fabulous party, with a collection of some of my dresses that I keep especially for that purpose, so that no girl has to feel like an ugly duckling on a special occasion like I did all those years ago. It was only in 2005 that I realised that the creature I encountered in the woods that day was a Bigfoot, who was clearly being put in his place by the female. Whether it was his mother or partner, I have no idea. But I never enter a forest when the birds aren't singing. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what a fabulous story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.